Aren't you eating, honey?
My husband asks, noticing that I'm not reaching for the Christmas dinner his mom made. Yeah, well, it's not like I don't have an appetite. If it's really delicious, I want to dig in, just like everyone else. But, I know for sure there's gotta be some issue with this Christmas feast. No matter how polite I am, I just can't put it in my mouth. My name's Sheila, 40 years old. When I slap on tons of facial serum to defy aging, my husband, Zach, jokingly comments, "It's like prepping a meal." Then he cracks up at his own joke. Geez, give me a break. Us women gotta put on a lot of skincare to keep up, I'm putting in the effort to stay young for him. He just doesn't get it. This is a story from my 20s when I could sleep with makeup on and still have smooth skin. I had only been married to my husband Zach for a year and we were still newlyweds. I got along great with his parents and even hung out with his sister, just the two of us. My married life was smooth sailing, or so I thought. One afternoon, I was out shopping with my mother-in-law, Teresa, who asked me, "Look, Sheila, which one of these do you think suits me better?" She was holding a dress in each hand. One was a navy blue knee-length dress with pearl beads, and the other was a bright pink maxi dress. Honestly, I wasn't feeling either of them. They're both kinda, That knee-length dress on my 56-year-old mother-in-law? If it suits her regardless of age, or if she likes it, then I guess she can wear whatever she wants. But let's be honest, it's not exactly the most flattering color for her. It looked too flashy, probably more suited for young girls. I was pretty sure the target was college girls, even younger than me. And the shocking pink one, while less revealing, was just too loud with its big floral pattern. Neither were good choices. Well, I guess the navy blue one would complement your skin tone better, I said, but I was worried she'd be shamed wearing it. Not just embarrassed for herself, but embarrassed for the whole family. They lived in a pretty rural area. Wearing something like that would have definitely attracted some attention from the townspeople. So I racked my brain trying to keep the peace. Oh yes. I grabbed another dress and put it against her body. Hey, this one will look great on you too. It was meant as a gesture of goodwill. I really thought the design suited her, but she just furrowed her brows. You mean this dark green? This is some old people's design. How rude. She glared at me. But the dark green was actually moss green, which was totally in that year. It was a color that could be rocked by anyone from young to older people. Plus, the design was a flowy maxi, not at all the old people's style, as she said. It had this crochet design at the hem, giving it this mature yet sexy vibe. But it just wasn't her thing. In the end, she grabbed the bright pink dress, which was like the most youthful design among the three, and headed to the register. Looking back, it was like a quiz. She already had the right answer in mind, the pink dress. I just ended up giving the wrong answer. She was someone who liked miniskirts and always went for youthful designs. Let's just say that the youthful passion wasn't exactly flattering on her, who isn't exactly slim and isn't exactly into self-improvement either. I thought it was fine if she liked it, but I kind of regretted giving my honest opinion when she asked me which one of the two. I messed up big time. After that, she started giving me cold shoulders. We used to go out together a few times a month, but those invitations stopped. She was easy to read, so I tried to reach out to her, but going out with you is exhausting. She declined. I felt like there was no way to mend things. I debated apologizing for the dress incident, but that felt disrespectful too. I was stuck on how to handle it. When I talked to Zach about it, he said, "Well, I kinda have my doubts about her fashion choices too, so it's good you gave an objective opinion." He actually seemed relieved. I was hoping for an advice on how to reconcile, but that wasn't the case. In the midst of all that, we decided to visit my in-laws for Christmas. back when things were good between us, I'd have gone without a second thought. After months of tension with Teresa, I was dreading it. However, when we arrived there, "So happy to see you guys." Jane looked genuinely excited to see us.
"Hey, welcome back."
My father-in-law, Corey, warmly welcomed us too. Teresa acted like nothing was wrong, saying it's been a while, just like always. I thought, phew, maybe time did heal things. But peace didn't last long, and the incident happened that very night. As soon as I took a bite of the dinner Teresa made, I tasted an intense sourness. I started coughing uncontrollably. "What's wrong? Did you get the food down in your windpipe?" Jane rubbed my back, and Zach handed me water. Even Corey was like,
"Take a deep breath,"
all worried. Teresa exclaimed, "Oh no." But the moment I glanced up, I didn't miss it. I caught a glimpse of a smirk on her lips. Everyone asked what was wrong, but I wondered if I should be honest about it. I worried sounding like I was criticizing her cooking, but I couldn't just keep quiet either. Screw it, I thought. "Well, this dressing is very sour," I confessed. Zach was surprised and grabbed some spinach from my plate and tasted it, only to start coughing from the sourness too. While he was choking, Teresa cracked up. "Oh my, did I put oil and vinegar? Oh my bad." "But you didn't make a separate one just for me, did you? Normally you make everyone together and then dish it out, right? It must be deliberate, isn't it?" Couldn't say for sure, but the way she smirked said it all. The family members protested to her, saying, "Come on, taste it before serving." She just repeated sorry. It didn't seem to be bothered. It was deliberate, no doubt. Other than that, there wasn't any harassment, but every time we visited, she would mess with my food. My salad would have lots of tomato stems, the stew would have onion skins, and scrambled eggs would have pieces of shells. She probably developed those other forms of harassment after being scolded to check the tasting for mixing too much vinegar. Every time she'd say, "Oops, I messed up. When I was dishing it out, I guess your plate got the weird stuff." Sneakily adding something that wouldn't cause any immediate problems is pretty nasty. I might have been thinking too much, but the taste wasn't even good. Sometimes there'd be chunks of barely edible parts of vegetables mixed into the soup. I thought she was going a bit too far. I tried to keep my complaints to a minimum, though. I hate conflict. But then whenever I pointed it out, "Why do you get mad at me over such a minor mistake? I just want to get along with you, but you're being so difficult." She played the victim card. Didn't the family help me out? Of course they did. Zach reminded her to be more careful with the cooking. Jane and Corey also warned her, but when everyone sided with me, she'd start fake crying, so they gradually stopped intervening. It just made things awkward, and I didn't want to keep reporting it to them every time, so I quietly picked out the peels and shells and ate the food. I'll endure it. As long as there's no other harassment, I'll treat myself to a feast at home later. This went on for about 2 years. Then came Christmas, which was different from usual. Instead of just our family, it was one of those rare occasions when relatives gathered. Nearly 20 people were at my in-laws, and it was bustling from the morning. Amidst it all, Teresa was humming as she prepared the feast in the kitchen. When I quietly observed her, she seemed even more cheerful than usual. I didn't like to think that way, but it was creepy. Normally, as the daughter-in-law, I should have helped with the cooking, but I generally didn't help out in the kitchen. That was because the one time I offered, I was strongly discouraged. Well, no wonder. If I was around, she couldn't sabotage my food. I wonder if she'll mess with my portion of food. But it's not like she's serving individually. If we're all sharing from the same plate, maybe she won't. I don't know. It's still scary. Feeling uneasy despite a festive holiday, I joined them for lunch. The feast on the table looked normal. There didn't seem to be any vegetable peels like usual. As everyone started reaching for food, I just stared at them.
"Aren't you eating, honey? Feeling sick?"
Zach peeked at me with concern. Jane, sitting diagonally across from me, showed concern and asked, "Oh no, are you okay?" Yeah, well... Sensing that I wanted to say something, they both stopped eating. Before I knew it, I blurted out the forbidden words. Well, because my food always gets tampered with. It doesn't look messed with on the surface today, so I'm scared it might taste awful.
Hey, don't say that.
You can't say the truth, Sheila. What? They panicked at my comment. What's going on? They must have noticed my food getting tampered with, right? It's always been like that, so they shouldn't be freaking out now. Mom can't cook. If we tell the truth, it'll just upset her. Huh? I'm left dumbfounded, looking at the flustered Jane. Teresa was standing right behind her, her face pale and trembling.
Shoot. Mom.
Zach was speechless. Then Teresa exploded. You disrespectful kids, saying I can't cook. Fine, I won't feed you guys anymore.
Well, honestly, it's better if you don't,
Zach said, seemingly resigned. Yeah, especially when we have guests over. We can just order in or something. Jane chimed in, agreeing. While I was stunned, Corey enlightened me.
You see, Teresa, she's, catastrophically bad at cooking. We even had a big fight once, and she stormed out of the house.
Apparently she had a unique sense of flavor and was completely oblivious to it. It was even worse back when Zach was a child, because she tried to get creative. While Corey silently endured it out of kindness, the kids couldn't take it. It was when they demanded better food that Teresa stormed out for a week. They managed to coax her back somehow, but it took a lot of apologizing from everyone. Since then, the food had improved somewhat, with everyone praising her and gently discouraging her from making any adjustments. Still, judging from her smirk whenever I removed peels and shells from my food, she must have intentionally added them. But I thought it was just another form of harassment. Bad-tasting dishes were unaltered. Since everyone else was eating the same kind of bad food, they didn't think I was being targeted. Apparently, it wasn't uncommon for vegetable peels or eggshells to end up in dishes back then, and everyone just thought she just made a mistake as she had to cook more food than usual. Finally, it all made sense. No wonder they didn't realize I was being harassed. There was a more fundamental issue at play. I was grateful that they warned her for me, even though it might have angered her. I remembered mentioning to Zach that I felt like I was being harassed by Teresa, but my concerns were dismissed as overthinking. At that time, I thought he wasn't reliable, but maybe he was just thinking.
You're overthinking it. Her food has always been bad.
Watching the family drama unfold, the relatives chuckled, saying, we couldn't mention it, but it looks like everyone was thinking the same thing. With alcohol fueling their words, they were quite blunt. Teresa's face turned beet red as she went insane. So you've all been thinking my cooking is bad all this time? No one answered her question, avoiding eye contact. The silence spoke volumes. It's not true, right? It's not bad, right? Sheila's dishes were just slightly altered. Her food was intentionally bad, but my usual cooking should be good. Come on, guys. Say something. She shouted, her voice getting louder, but everyone just kept their heads down, sipping their drinks in silence. It felt more like a funeral than Christmas. More importantly, in her rage, she inadvertently confessed to sabotaging my food.
Maybe your taste buds are beyond saving, but seriously, stop dressing like a teenager. Maybe try looking at yourself objectively, Mom.
Indeed. You should realize you're being laughed at by the neighbors. Jane added more to Zach's comments and sighed. They only fueled the fire, and Teresa's face turned dark red. Who gave you birth? What did you just say to your mother?
No, it's not about that anymore. There are things you could and should say to your parents.
Zach's words were met with nods from Jane and a troubled expression from Corey. You guys are mocking me. I'm still in my 50s, still young. Stop treating me like an old lady.
Again, it's not about that. Jeez, you're so hard-headed. I don't want to nitpick your fashion choices, but maybe think about toning it down a bit.
Zach let out a big sigh. The relatives seemed to agree, laughing awkwardly. What's the matter with you and Sheila, treating me like an old lady? As the furious Teresa angrily stomped her right foot on the ground, Corey quietly approached and said,
"Anyway, I apologize to Sheila for harassing her."
If she stayed silent, it would have been dismissed as the usual crappy cooking. There was no way to hide the fact that she tampered with my food. Teresa seemed to realize she slipped up just then, and her face turned from red to white as a sheet in a second.
It was just a mistake,
she stammered.
Whether it was a mistake or not, it doesn't change the fact that you did something wrong. Why on earth did you resort to such harassment?
Well,
It's probably because of that, right? Sheila suggested you wear more mature clothes or something. Of course she would. Flashy clothes just don't suit you, you know? That's what they call overreacting.
Unable to protest, Teresa remained pale, looking down. Corey sighed again, saying,
Geez, just for that.
At that moment she erupted.
what do you mean just for that? No matter how close we are, I'm still her mother-in-law. Treating me like an old lady is just rude.
She didn't treat you like an old lady. She just suggested what might suit you.
That's definitely not what she meant. She was looking down on me thinking young fashion doesn't suit me. I'm not apologizing to her.
She pouted childishly, turning away in defiance. Needless to say, everyone was exasperated by her immature behavior. In the end, feeling uncomfortable, the relatives quietly left that day. We also decided to cancel our stay and return home. On January 3rd, Corey called and dropped the bombshell out of the blue.
Teresa and I are separating.
After that incident, he had a long, earnest conversation with the unrepentant Teresa, hoping to make her see reason. But instead of admitting her faults, she became even more defiant, accusing him of being cold and not measuring up to a good husband's standards. That was the last straw for the usually gentle Corey, and they ended up deciding to live separately. It took about half a year for Teresa to finally reflect on her actions. When she came to apologize to me, she also asked if we could help patch things up between her and Corey.
If you're only apologizing to her to get on Dad's good side, then forget it. We won't help and we won't forgive you.
Zach shut her down immediately. She tried enlisting Jane's help too.
I doubt he'll change his mind because he's really furious. You two should try to work it out yourselves.
She was met with a firm refusal. In the end, she was left isolated and couldn't change Corey's mind. About half a year later, they finalized their divorce. Her luck must have run out by upsetting Corey, who cherished her despite her bad cooking. With no savings as a stay-at-home wife, she tried to rely on Jane. But around the same time as her divorce, Jane got married and refused to live with her, as her husband didn't like the idea. Well, I guess that's understandable. As for us, Zach was still mad at her, so we didn't take her in. Currently, she's living with her younger sister, with whom she's had a bad relationship since childhood. She's been given what can only be described as a leaky, drafted shed, not a proper room. I feel a bit sorry for her, but like they say, what goes around comes around. On the other hand, I've given birth to 2 kids and have been working on toning up my post-pregnancy body with home workouts. I've been doing jump rope with the kids, and let me tell you, they have endless energy. Playing with them has naturally helped me shed some weight. Now I'm just focusing on firming up my face with some serum. Zach has been consistently a loving husband since then. On weekends he takes us hiking, and sometimes when he manages to get a weekday off, we sneak in a date while the kids are out. It feels a little awkward and embarrassing to go on dates nowadays, but it's still nice to be treated like a woman. I hope we can continue holding hands and going for walks together no matter how old we get.
My mother-in-law called me a disgusting gluttonous woman, kicking me out of the house. 3 months later, they came to my office and chaos ensued.
I'm Kathy. I'm a 40-year-old working housewife. I work in a research position at a certain company. My husband Greg was a year older than me and is an office worker. Despite the low pay due to his frequent job changes, we manage to get by because I also work. However, my mother-in-law, who lives nearby, seems dissatisfied with us, or rather, with me.
Are you just working all the time and not properly taking care of your husband? Do you think you're cool because you're a researcher or something?
If it were up to me, I would have preferred my son to marry a more refined daughter who enjoys tea and flowers. It's a pity he ended up marrying someone who's always engrossed in research. Even though it's been 10 years since we got married, my mother-in-law persistently comes to nag me.
I had thought that if you bore a grandchild, I would acknowledge you as my daughter-in-law, but you can't even do that.
I must admit, I do have some regret about reaching the age of 40 without being able to have children. Neither my husband nor I had any problems, but my research kept me too busy to actively pursue infertility treatment. But that's not the only reason. My husband's repeated job changes and unstable income were also factors. We have Peaches at home, the cat we keep in our condo. Peaches is our precious family member.
Cats can't replace children. They can't be successors, can they?
Since this isn't a family that requires a successor, it doesn't matter. First of all, my husband is the second son, and the eldest son in his family already has 4 children. That should be enough, right? The eldest son and his wife live separately far away due to his work. Perhaps they're keeping their distance physically due to the extreme nature of my mother-in-law's personality. Maybe I should also move far away like they did. But there's still the mortgage on the apartment, so what should I do? Despite my mother-in-law being close by and occasionally visiting, I tolerated the harassment because we lived separately. However, an unexpected situation arose. To my surprise, my mother-in-law fell down and broke a bone. She recently got discharged, but she still has difficulty walking. Since my father-in-law passed away a few years ago, my mother-in-law has been living alone. Cleaning, laundry, and shopping will become difficult for her to manage alone. And since the eldest son's family lives far away, we can't expect them to provide care. We considered hiring home helpers, and my husband took the initiative to start there.
I'll take care of Mom. My older brother is useless. I guess Mom really needs me after all.
Apparently, he's been discriminated against among his siblings in the past. He's probably eager now that it's finally his turn to shine. My husband approached me about taking in his mother to live with us in the apartment. Of course, I refused. Living with that mother-in-law of mine is absolutely out of the question. However, it seems her injury has humbled her completely. Even when I visited her in the hospital, she was meek and apologized for everything she's done before.
I'm sorry for causing you worry. I'm truly pathetic.
Please, get well soon.
I'm happy. Despite all the hurtful words I've said, you're being kind to me. You're like an angel.
I was moved. For my mother-in-law to apologize and express gratitude to me, it's a complete change from before. Kind words towards others often receive kindness in return. I had forgotten such a simple truth. I used to think living with my mother-in-law was absolutely out of the question. But if she's truly transformed, I might agree to cohabitation. Maybe I can build a good relationship with my mother-in-law from now on. Out of sympathy for my mother-in-law and optimism for the future, I agreed to cohabit. But as soon as the cohabitation began, I instantly regretted it. The kindness my mother-in-law showed at the hospital was just an act to convince me to agree to cohabitation. As soon as we started living together, my mother-in-law reverted to her old ways.
The floor around the sink was overflowing with water.
Even though she says overflowing, it was just a few drops splashed around. Just a quick wipe with a cloth would have taken care of it. And yet...
Are you planning to make me fall again and worsen my other leg as well? Oh, how terrifying.
She's making such a fuss and treating me like the villain. When I would come home late because I was so passionate about my research...
Just how long are you going to wander around aimlessly? Are you cheating secretly under the guise of doing research?
She's accusing me for things that aren't even true. The most troublesome thing is that my mother-in-law and I have different tastes in food.
As I get older, I dislike heavy foods. Make mine with light seasoning, please.
My mother-in-law demands separate dishes like that. If she has complaints, she can make it herself. She's able to stand up, so it's not like she can't come to the kitchen. But I also think If making separate meals means I can eat what I like, then that's fine. But then my husband starts criticizing the food I made for us too.
What kind of meat is that? It looks too dark to be beef.
This is a wild boar, and this is raccoon. I love wild game, so I often serve these dishes at the table.
Oh, raccoons? I can't believe it. Raccoons, really? What terribly bad food.
It's delicious, though. Raccoon is a common game meat. If you prepare it properly, it can be delicious. Even bears and rabbits. No, not just animals. Any living creature in the world can be delicious. But my mother-in-law hates my eating habits.
At this rate, she might even eat the cat. Oh, that's terrible.
What are you saying? Eating the family's peaches? I would never do that. It's true that I love him so much I could just eat him up. The bullying from my mother-in-law has only gotten worse since we started living together. It's no use complaining to my husband. I thought I couldn't take it anymore. That's when it happened. My mother-in-law finally exploded at dinner one night.
Oh, this soup is delicious. You don't make something decent very often. What is this seasoning? A special soup seasoning?
My mother-in-law only uses this seasoning. She asks for the seasoning as soon as she opens her mouth. It's cricket powder. It has a nutty flavor and it's delicious.
Cricket? What's that?
It's crickets.
What? Crickets?
My mother-in-law opened her eyes wide in surprise. Yes, they've been in the news lately. It's amazing how crickets can be turned into a delicious spice. The research I'm doing now. Without even listening, my mother-in-law covered her mouth and ran to the bathroom. Soon there was the sound of violent vomiting coming from the toilet. Are you okay? I rushed to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law yelled at me while holding the toilet bowl in the bathroom.
You tried to feed me insects?
But you said it was delicious.
That's not the point. Insects are disgusting, you monster.
In an attempt to clear up her misunderstanding, I explained the world food situation in simple terms. Eating crickets is becoming more common these days. Insect food is said to be the key to solving the global food crisis. Insects are also animal protein, just like animals. People have been eating insects since ancient times, such as locusts and bee larvae.
But that doesn't mean you can feed me crickets.
I don't see how crickets are any different from locusts or honeycombs.
I can't live with a monster like you. Get out.
My mother-in-law threw toilet paper and detergent at me, and I ran away in a panic. Well, well. There are still many people who are reluctant to eat insects. But I'm sure when my husband comes home and explains it to her, she'll calm down. I expected so. But my husband came home, heard the story from my mother-in-law, and started blaming me.
Isn't this awful? I heard you tried to feed poison to Mom. If I had lost my mother... Oh, what a terrifying woman.
That's not it. I was just flustered. What is my husband misunderstanding? That crickets are poisonous?
I can't live with such a terrifying woman either. Let's get a divorce.
Huh? I couldn't believe my ears. Divorce because of cricket powder in the food? For that reason? After a moment of silence, I spoke. I understand. I'm tired of a husband who only listens to his mom and won't listen to me, and a mother-in-law who keeps bullying me even though we live together out of my kindness. So, about this apartment, I started to say, but my excited mother-in-law and husband didn't seem to want to hear.
Get out now. It's divorce. Divorce.
From the side, my mother-in-law shouted,
Get out, you glutton! You monster of a woman! Disgusting!
It's pointless to say anything to these two right now. I thought I should distance myself for a while. I'm going back to my parents' house. Let's talk about the future when things calm down. Then my husband shouted even louder.
Oh, just as I expected. I'll claim plenty of compensation for the harm done to my mother.
I left the apartment as if being chased out and went back to my parents' house. My parents accepted me without saying anything. I thought about it. Unforgivable. Divorced without even bothering to listen to me, and blaming the cricket powder too. What do they think of my research? Peaches. I lifted Peaches, who I brought back with me. I really can't forgive them, can I, Peaches? But as long as I have you, Peaches, I'm okay. And if I have a job I love, we'll forget about those two completely and be happy together. Peaches let out a meow, as if to say, got it. 3 months have passed since then. After leaving home, I stayed at my parents' house for a while, but soon found a new place and moved out. It was also a good time to change jobs, so I rented an apartment close to my new workplace. While playing with Peaches in my new home, I received a call from my ex-husband.
When did you become a CEO?
Without much of a greeting, my ex-husband asked. It seems he saw my picture in a financial magazine where my company was being interviewed. So, what if I am? Even if your divorced ex-wife does something, it shouldn't concern you, right? As I replied coldly, my ex-husband stumbled over his words.
It shouldn't concern me? Couldn't you have told me? Especially since your company got a $3 million venture capital investment.
That's right. I had been working in a corporate research lab for a long time, but my research was recognized. And I became the CEO of an in-house venture company that develops and sells insect-based food. The company had been asking me to take on this role for a while, and with this divorce, I decided to challenge myself with something new. Nowadays, as the CEO of a venture company, I'm busy with management, financing, marketing, and public relations. It's been challenging since I've been in research for so long, but I'm having really fulfilling days. So on my rare days off, I just want to relax. I don't have time to chat with you about nothing.
Where are you right now? I tried calling your parents' house, but they hung up on me, and when I tried to meet...
Ah, I see. So they hung up. Taking a leaf from my parents' book, I hung up on my ex-husband's call. Why do I have to meet my ex-husband every time? It doesn't make any sense. Then 3 days later, my ex-husband actually showed up at my workplace. And he brought along his mother. Apparently, they found the address by searching for the company name since they didn't know where I lived. I heard a scream from the reception, so I quickly went there and found them harassing the receptionist. Coming to the company like this is still so tactless. It's bothering others, so please leave. I coldly pushed them away.
Please, come back.
Please, come home. I didn't know you became the CEO of such a prestigious company.
If left alone, the two seemed on the verge of causing a scene at the company entrance. Please, stop. It's embarrassing. Especially in a place like this. I tried to send them away, but then I had a change of heart. Even if I manage to resolve this situation now, they'll surely come back. Let's settle this once and for all here. Since you've come all this way, would you like a tour of the office? I took them towards the CEO's office. The office building sparkled with busy employees hustling around. Every time employees saw me, they stood up and greeted me with welcome back. Overwhelmed by the atmosphere, the two of them seemed speechless. As we walked down the long hallway, I asked, So what's up with the both of you coming here today? Adult field trip? However, our company doesn't accept general tours, you know. I then added to the stunned pair. The apartment where you currently live? Well, the next tenant has been decided. The real estate agent is pushing me to have you leave quickly. The apartment is under my name. When I bought the apartment, I took out a mortgage in my name alone, because my husband's income couldn't support a large loan. Strictly speaking, it might be considered marital property, but if my husband were to apply for property division, I'd be ready to go to court. If he really wants to go to court, I'll claim that I was forcibly kicked out this summer after enduring harassment.
That's, well...
My ex-husband stuttered.
Could you wait a little longer for us to vacate the apartment? We don't have anywhere else to go. No, that's not it. I want you to come back. I realize now that I need you after all.
His mother joined in from the side.
I never imagined crickets would become so popular. I apologize for what happened before.
I know what's really on their minds. So, now that I've become successful, you want to come crawling back. Or were you blinded by the $3 million investment? Did you think you could benefit from my newfound wealth? Sorry, that won't work. The $3 million was just a loan for research and development. It's not money I can use personally, obviously. I chuckled. Well, even if I did get $3 million personally, I wouldn't share a single cent with you guys. At the end of the long hallway is my office, which also serves as my research lab. Although I've become CEO, I'm still a researcher at heart. I still want to continue my beloved research. Well, please, come in. I opened the door and welcomed them into my domain.
Whoa!
As soon as they entered, the two of them let out startled cries. Certainly, it's understandable that anyone would want to scream. Inside the room, there were piles of containers, terrariums, and water plants, with a plethora of insects wriggling around. But insects are essential partners in my research. In a way, they're like my cute little children. The same goes for my cat Peaches. It's rude of them to be surprised by my children. Our company researches various insects for food besides crickets. Any creature in the world should be delicious if properly prepared. Beetles, caterpillars, cicadas, scorpions. Various insects are already consumed on Earth. Currently, we're experimenting with tarantulas. They're large and perfect for food, so I really want to make it happen. And then I picked up the small tank from the desk. A tarantula was crawling around inside. My adorable little Tarantino. Would you like to try a sample? It's still unprepared, though.
Help me!
The two of them fled with their tails between their legs. I burst into laughter as I washed their backs. With this, there's no way the two of them will come barging into the company again. Later, the two of them left my apartment. Maybe they thought I'd release tarantulas in the apartment if they dawdled. As if that would ever happen. It seems my ex-husband is considering another job, but so far the only prospect seems to be wild boar hunting for pest control. And apparently my mother-in-law had been stung by a big bee on her broken leg and was unable to move. It must be the curse for mocking animals and insects. While waiting for the real estate agent in the apartment after the two of them left, Peaches, whom I had brought with me, caught a bug and dropped it right in front of me. Oh, would you like to have it? I'll pass for now because the preparation is troublesome. But as a thank you, I'll give you some treats when we get home. Peaches let out a happy meow.
On my first Christmas homecoming, scorned by my Mill and treated as a maid, I declared divorce, leaving both my husband and Mill shocked.
How about we go to my parents' place for Christmas this year? That was the beginning, and it was also the beginning of the end. My name is Amy, a 35-year-old housewife. I met my husband Neil at work. Right after we got married, we were blessed with our lovely daughter Nora, and I quit my job. This was the first time we went to visit Neil's distant hometown since our daughter turned 6. Marla's voice echoed through the room. Hey, is dinner not ready yet? I was scrambling around as I replied, Yes, Marla, just a little bit longer. My mother-in-law sighed deeply. You're so slow. Neil, how do you put up with a wife like this? Well, you know, other wives are much more on top of things. I really hate how slow she is. What did you say? And do you have the nerve to say that while you're just lounging around watching TV? I was about to retort when Marla's words hit me. Once you're done with breakfast, you need to clean the yard. After that, organize the storage room. Then clear out the outdoor shed. It's supposed to be Christmas, the one time of the year when it's okay to relax. So why am I being worked to the bone? And it's so annoying that my husband is still just lazing around. By the time I managed to finish all the chores I was tasked with, I was utterly exhausted and couldn't move. I collapsed in the living room. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Marla immediately commanded, Who said you could rest? Get started on lunch now. But I've been moving around this whole time. Let me rest for a bit. A wife is basically like a maid. You think you can just sit around and not work? Get to work. But the countryside where my husband's family lives is, for better or worse, still clinging to old traditions. A wife belongs to her husband's family home. It seems old-fashioned attitudes persist. But even in the old days, wives weren't worked this hard. Can you help me out here? I asked Neil. No way, he quickly replied. My husband does nothing at home, and even less so when he's at his parents'. He basically becomes a lazy drinker. He hasn't moved from his spot since the morning. Hey, I want to go buy some groceries. Yeah, go ahead. Help me. I insisted. The grocery store in the countryside is far. Neil, who has a driver's license, had already started drinking in the morning, and I don't have one. Walking there is the only option, but a 30-minute walk one way is too much to handle alone. When I asked him at least to carry the bags, he frowned. No way. He answered immediately again. I felt like throwing a chicken at his face. It would probably be a hassle to clean off. While I was imagining this, my husband casually swung a beer can. I just drank it, Neil said, sounding robotic. I am drunk. So what? I cannot. So, in other words, he doesn't want to go. Fine, jackass. As I was getting irritated, Marla yelled from behind me. Is dinner not ready yet? Ugh! Enough! I'll buy a ton of sweets. Let them eat and get fat. Phew! Finally back. I sighed after the grueling 30-minute walk each way, hands full of bags. I stumbled back to my in-laws' house, barely standing. Sitting down at the entrance, I let out a heavy sigh. That's when it happened. Hurry up! You're just like your mother, so slow. I'm sorry. Hearing Marla's scolding and my daughter's apology made me feel like a robot running on reserve power. Forgetting all my fatigue, I sprung up and dashed toward the source of the voices. I stomped over my still loafing husband on my way. I thought I heard a pathetic oof, but ignored it. I headed to the kitchen. What are you doing? I couldn't help but yell, catching my mother-in-law and daughter's attention at once. Oh, Mom. So, you finally decided to come back, Marla said, seeing me. My daughter's eyes were filled with tears, while Marla sat there smugly. What are you doing? I asked again. Marla snorted. My daughter was holding a pot and lid. Why? Nora, sweetie, what are you doing? Nora stuttered out. Grandma said she was hungry and told me to make something. She said to start with soup, so I got the pot. My goodness, she can't even boil water. What a useless granddaughter. What are you teaching her? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I guess. Are you really my son's child? I couldn't hold back when she insulted my daughter. Marla, she's only 6. Asking such a young kid to make soup? She might know how, but surely you can do it. To treat your own granddaughter like this? Marla's face turned red as she shrieked. What are you saying? Making an old woman work? What a horrible woman you are. Listen here, a wife is a maid. It's natural for you to work without complaint, and a maid's daughter is also a maid. A maid? After all, who do you think you're living off of? You're living off the money my son works hard to earn. Respecting your husband and me is only proper. Stop complaining and work, maid. Marla yelled before storming out of the kitchen. I was so taken aback by her outburst that I couldn't respond. Words just failed me. She apparently went to the living room where my husband was. I could hear their voices talking. Your wife is pretty useless, isn't she? Less than a maid, I'd say. Come on, Nora will be more helpful as she grows. Just a little patience. You must be struggling, son. You know, you could always come back home if you want. You mean get a divorce? That's an idea, but you know, a maid is handy to have around. Hey, how about we move in together? I've been fed up with my job anyway. Let her handle the work, and I can enjoy a laid-back life in the countryside. What did my husband just say? His horrifying statement sent chills down my spine. Oh, that sounds lovely. I stood there, frozen, clenching my fists, until I felt a gentle warmth cover my hand. Mom? It was Nora. I slowly looked down at her. She was looking up at me, concern written all over her face. I crouched down to her eye level and spoke softly. Hey, sweetheart. Yeah? Do you like Daddy? She couldn't answer right away, which made sense. Neil was indifferent to parenting. He would come home from work and hardly talk to Nora, preferring to lounge on the sofa, watching TV or messing with his phone. Weekends meant late nights out drinking. With the pandemic, he started drinking at home until late into the night. Hangovers became a routine. Long weekends were spent lazing at home or going out with friends. Family outings were rare, if ever. When was the last time we went out together? This family trip to visit his parents was the first in months. No, years. Neil probably doesn't even know what class Nora is in at preschool, let alone her likes and dislikes, or what she wants to be when she grows up. I doubt he knows she's starting elementary school next year. No wonder she can't say she likes her father. It was to be expected. Then I started. Do you like Grandma? No. She replied instantly. The immediate response made me chuckle. No surprise there, after the way she'd been treated. But then Nora said something unexpected. Because Grandma bullies you. It's supposed to be Christmas, but you haven't had any time to relax. You're always being told to do this or that. Grandma is mean. Children see more than we think. Well, it was pretty obvious with all the orders being thrown around. I asked her, smiling despite the situation. Sweetie, do you want to live with Grandma? She shook her head. Do you want Daddy around? No. Her quick response was brilliant. And with that, my decision was made. The next day, Nora and I spent the whole day out. By the time we returned to my in-laws' house, it was already night. Marla and Neil were waiting, visibly irritated. Finally back, huh? What were you doing? Just out. I dodged his question. Marla scoffed. This is the problem with young wives these days. That's it. You're officially the maid. Hey maid, I'm hungry. Where's my dinner and coffee? The ever-commanding Marla. I silently served them coffee. Neil reached for his mug, but I swiftly took it from him. Huh? What the hell? He looked puzzled. I dumped the coffee right over his head. Ah! What are you doing? Don't worry, it's cooled down. That's not the point. Stop it. I poured a generous amount of coffee over him, dodging his reaching hand and placing the mug down. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Acting like this when you're just a maid. Marla raged, her anger plain to see. Shut up. I'm not your maid or anything else. I retorted fiercely. She tried to stand and yell back, but I cut her off. What? She exclaimed. A son's wife is not a maid. If you didn't know, let me tell you. I am not a maid. I pressed on, leaving Marla speechless. She opened and closed her mouth, unable to find words. I glanced at her, foaming at the mouth, and leaned in close. Marla let out a shrill cry, but I didn't back down, getting within a few inches of her face. Listen, and listen well. There's no system in this world that says you can use your daughter-in-law however you like. I'm here to protect my family, but I'm not here to be a servant. But I'm your husband's mother. We're family. You should protect me. Listen to my orders. Are you out of your frigging mind? If I were a real maid, I wouldn't be family. Why would a family member take orders from you? I replied calmly, keeping my cool. Marla's face, once pale, was now bright red. You! What kind of way is that to speak to me? You speak horribly to me, so I'm talking to you the same way. Who do you think you are? I'm your mother-in-law. Save it for your dreams, I said, having reached my limit. I had been patient, incredibly patient, but enough was enough. There's a limit to everything, and Neil and Marla's attitudes finally broke down my patience. And what exactly do you think your granddaughter is? A maid? Treating your own granddaughter like a maid? Enough with this nonsense already. I leaned in closer, and Marla's face turned pale again. Scared, huh? Pathetic. All that arrogance, and she crumbles with just a bit of pushback. I was taken aback by her superficiality. I pulled back, narrowing my eyes in disgust. Marla, now pale, was trembling slightly. Seeing this, I turned my attention to another person. Now, it's your turn. Yes? Neil replied in a pitiful voice. I glared at him fiercely. Your wife and daughter are being treated like maids, and what are you doing about it? I was on my phone. And then? Drinking beer. So you're enjoying your drinks while your wife and daughter are treated like maids? How nice. Sorry. Sure you are. Ah! Neil let out a pathetic scream as I yelled at him, and then he ran to hide behind Marla. Seriously? I was so disgusted by their pathetic behavior that I decided to get straight to the point and handed him a piece of paper. Just sign this now. What is this? Neil peeked out from behind Marla like a puppy peeking out from its mother. As soon as he realized what the document was, his face went completely pale. The divorce paper? What the hell is this? We're getting divorced, and I won't be coming back here ever again. Marla and Neil both opened their mouths in shock at my words. I waved the paper in front of them. I've already filled out my part. Just write your part quickly. I'm submitting it to the office after Christmas. That's a fake document. The office is closed. You couldn't have prepared it. Too bad for you. Divorce papers can be downloaded from the internet. In fact, they'll accept it if I bring it in today. Neil shook his head, almost in tears, refusing to sign. No, I don't want a divorce. You're troubled by the thought of me leaving? Yes. Because having me around to do everything for you has been helpful? Yes. So having a maid like me around makes life easier for you, and that's why you want to avoid a divorce? Yes. No, wait, that's not what I meant. Gotcha. Ah! Deja vu. It felt like just moments ago that Neil was screaming at my furious expression. Well, if he won't sign, I might as well get a professional involved. Whether you sign or not, I'm getting a divorce. I've already told my parents. Nora?
Yes, Mom.
Are you ready?
I've packed all my stuff.
Nora peeked out, holding up her bag. Oh, are you going somewhere? Neil asked, noticing the luggage. I turned around, holding my own bags. Good question. We're going back to my parents' house. Hey, don't be stupid. The only one being and having been stupid is you. I didn't do anything stupid. You brought us here to be treated like maids. This is ridiculous. We'll discuss the divorce formally with a lawyer. Goodbye. Having said my piece, I headed for the door with my daughter, Neil following us desperately. Wait, you can't live without my paycheck. At his words, I stopped and turned around slowly. Have you forgotten? What? I used to out-earn and outrank you. I quit my job because of the pregnancy, but even then I was earning more than you do now. Neil turned pale. Had he forgotten we worked at the same place? Convenient memory. I plan to slowly get back to work with my parents' support. I'll be staying with my parents for a while. I'll start working again, and even if I don't earn as much as before, I'll manage. No, I'll make it work. Neil was almost in tears. I'm sorry. I'll change. Just please don't divorce me. You had many chances to change, but you wasted them. It's too late for regrets. With that, I reached for the door. That's when Marla shouted, Wait! Until now silent, Marla now looked troubled as I turned back irritably. What now? What about my dinner? Who cares? I shouted back, and this time we really did leave. My daughter and I went straight to my parents' house, where they welcomed us with open smiles. My, what a tough Christmas you've had, my mom said, inviting us inside. Nora's smile returned, a relief spreading over her face. What a Christmas adventure. Hopefully next year will be more peaceful. The discussions with Neil, who kept saying he didn't want a divorce, were difficult. But considering facts like my daughter's refusal to see her father, the divorce was eventually finalized, including a lump sum for child support. I couldn't trust that man. As a result, we sold the condo where we lived, and Neil apparently went back to live with his parents. One day, my ex-husband called to complain, saying, "Mom's not doing anything. Actually, it's gotten worse." It seems the neighbors had seen me being overworked, and word of our divorce spread quickly through the grapevine typical of rural areas. As a result, my former mother-in-law is now getting cold stares from those neighbors. That makes sense. No matter how rural the setting, calling your daughter-in-law a maid is just not acceptable. It's severely outdated. Because of this, Marla, who started staying indoors more, has become even more irritable, treating her son like a servant. He was venting on the phone about their daily arguments. I wasn't interested in their drama. I planned to tell him that I had confirmed the child support payment and then hang up. "You reap what you sow," I said coldly. I could almost visualize him on the verge of tears on the other end. "Come on, can't you help out a little? I'm Nora's dad, and she's her grandma." To that, I smiled, though he couldn't see it, and said, "I just drank it." "What's with the tone?" "I am drunk." "Hey." "I cannot." "Hey, I was wrong, okay?" As if I'd help you. I yelled and hung up the phone. I blocked his number right after. Laughter is the best medicine, and I couldn't stop laughing for a while after that. Thank you for listening to my story.
On my wedding day, my mother-in-law criticized me in a speech. This outburst resulted in disaster for her.
I truly feel happy in my heart. Believing that, I welcomed today. However, my high school dropout daughter-in-law, I'll make sure she's properly trained. My mother-in-law wore a smug expression. Why do I have to be told such things on a day of celebration like this? As I bit my lip and held back tears, I felt a gentle warmth on my shoulders. My name is Erin McCarthy. I'll be 30 years old this year.
Erin, I'll leave today's delivery slip here.
Yes, thank you for your hard work, as always. I checked the products while looking at the vendor's delivery slip. My job involves managing everything at a certain supermarket. There's a lot to do every day, like managing inventory, sales, stocking shelves, and taking inventory. I've been working for 15 years already, so my body moves faster than my mind. But having a job and getting a stable salary is reassuring. I'm really grateful to be able to lead a stable life. I finish work on time, go shopping, and then go home. I'm single, but I have a family. A very important family.
Welcome back, sis.
I'm home. How was college today?
It was only in the morning today. I start my part-time job at 8 p.m. I'm hungry. Can you make something, sis?
Tanner, my little brother, says while watching TV. Come on, you're old enough to do it yourself.
All right.
I wonder if he really understands. Thinking about living alone from now on makes me anxious. But it's really the last time I can do something for Tanner. When I think about it, I feel kind of sad. I set about preparing dinner. I'm soon getting married and leaving this house where my brother and I live. I have finally found my happiness, despite everything that has happened to me. Tanner and I are siblings. When I was in the second year of middle school and Tanner was 5, our parents passed away in a car accident. I lost both parents at the same time and I was sad and cried all the time. But Tanner was only 5. Unable to understand the meaning of losing our parents, I remember him saying, Why are mom and dad sleeping?" At that moment, I stopped crying, realizing I needed to be strong for my little brother. Relatives hesitated to take us in. Certainly, there are few people who have the capacity to suddenly take in 2 children. However, my mother's sister, Aunt Sally, reached out to us. We were taken care of at our aunt's house and treated with genuine affection like real children. To ensure my younger brother wouldn't feel lonely, I declined hanging out with friends and went straight home. And when I entered the 3rd year of junior high school, I made a certain resolution. Huh? Erin, are you going to get a job? Yeah, I want to work to earn money, especially considering my younger brother's future.
But Tanner is still in elementary school, isn't he? You don't need to worry about money, do you?
My aunt encouraged me to go to high school, but my determination was firm. With 2 elementary school children at my aunt's house, it must have been far from easy. When I thought about that, I couldn't help but feel that going to high school seemed like a luxury.
I understand. If you say so, Erin, then do as you like.
But if you ever want to continue your education, just let me know. I'm here for you, just like your mom would have been. Those words from my aunt made me happy. Then, over the next 15 years, work became enjoyable and time flew by. Even my brother Tanner is now a respectable college student. Come to think of it, when my brother graduated from junior high school...
Hey, Erin, I'm thinking about getting a job too.
What do you want to do, Tanner?
Well, I want to go to school, but I can't let you work alone, Erin.
If you want to go, then go. And don't worry about money. Did I really say that and let him continue his education? And when it was time for college,
I'll manage somehow by getting a scholarship,
he said, and I responded, it's okay. I told him that he did not need to worry about it.
What's this large sum of money?
It's the money our parents left for us. Use this to go to college.
But what about you?
He must feel guilty for continuing his education up to high school and college while I only graduated from middle school and worked.
If you live the way you like, that's fine by me.
My biggest wish was to let Tanner do what he wanted. While preparing dinner, I spoke to Tanner. Hey, about tomorrow.
What is it? Are you going on a date with Harrison?
Wedding planning. I'll be late coming back. I'm getting married soon. I couldn't wait to celebrate the new beginning with my beloved. It was so exciting. After dinner, Tanner went to his part-time job and I was mesmerized while looking at brochures of the venue. I wonder what it'll be like. I wish I could have shown it to Mom and Dad. As I flipped through the pages, my phone rang and I answered it. Hello, Harrison.
Erin, is it okay to stick to the plan for tomorrow at 10?
Yes, no problem at all.
Alright, I'll pick you up at your place then.
I'll be waiting. See you tomorrow. Harrison, my fiancé, always cares for me so kindly. We met through a friend's introduction. Although we met almost like a blind date, surprisingly we hit it off right away. Things clicked into place, and our courtship began smoothly. And on my 30th birthday...
Will you marry me?
I happily accepted the joyful proposal. To think such a kind and wonderful person would become my husband. I couldn't express the happiness of that moment in words. And I was so happy that I felt like jumping up right there. After deciding to register our marriage after the wedding, we steadily proceeded with the preparations. But I had one worry. It was Harrison's mother, and from my point of view, my mother-in-law. When we went to greet her for the wedding, my mother-in-law was kind to me.
Oh, I heard you've been taking care of your younger sibling in place of your parents. That's commendable. Erin, I'm touched. Let's get along from now on.
She has such a favorable attitude.
I've raised Harrison all by myself too, so I understand your feelings. You must have had a tough time. Please, think of me as a real mother.
I thought my mother-in-law was someone who would support me. I was so relieved to have such a kind mother-in-law, but...
By the way, Erin, which university did you graduate from?
Huh? University? As I was bewildered.
Erin has been working since junior high.
Harrison spoke up for me.
Oh, only junior high?
I could see my mother-in-law's expression darken for a moment.
My love for Erin has nothing to do with her education. I love Erin for who she is.
Harrison said, smiling at me, but my mother-in-law's expression remained gloomy.
Harrison has graduated from a prestigious university, and his wife, is a high school dropout.
Mom, what are you saying?
Being a high school dropout in this day and age is embarrassing. It's something you can't show your face to society with.
My mother-in-law's words pierced my heart. Despite the circumstances, it was my own choice to only finish junior high school. Until now, I had never felt guilt or embarrassment about it. But when my mother-in-law says such things, my mind went blank. Am I really such a shameful presence that I can't even introduce myself to others?
Mom, please stop. Aaron, I'm sorry.
Harrison apologized to me, but all I could do was smile wryly. My mother-in-law had been watching me with a suspicious gaze the whole time. Marriage means becoming family with your mother-in-law as well. But in this state, I wondered if we could really get along as a family.
Aaron, can't you even understand this? A daughter who hasn't even finished high school is no good after all.
I disliked my mother-in-law who constantly made such remarks. One day, something happened.
I heard your parents died in a car accident, Aaron.
This is what my mother-in-law said to me when Harrison left his seat. I wondered why she brought it up out of the blue, but I responded normally. Yes, that's correct.
People who suddenly die in accidents must have done terribly wicked things in their past lives. They probably accumulated a lot of bad karma.
Ugh, how awful. Speaking ill of my parents like that is just too much. I was so shocked that I couldn't say anything, and my mother-in-law kept on talking incessantly.
You've had a string of misfortunes too, haven't you? That's also influenced by your actions in past lives. So, do your best to honor your parents. Otherwise, you'll fall back into misfortune again.
I instinctively covered my ears at my mother-in-law's loud, laughing voice. It's impossible. I can't become family with such a person. Tears welled up in my eyes as I thought so. If marriage is this painful, maybe. Unsettling thoughts crossed my mind, but the wedding is already looming next week. I can't just cancel everything now. Harrison noticed me crying and confronted his own mother.
Mom, did you say something again?
What? I just told the truth.
What did you say?
I stepped in to mediate when two of them were arguing and decided to just go home for the day. Harrison listened to me and apologized sincerely, almost as if he was bowing down to apologize.
Aaron, I'm really sorry.
It's okay, Harrison, it's not your fault. But honestly, I might be at my limit.
But I want to be with you, Aaron.
I don't want to be apart from you either, Harrison. We approached our wedding day believing in the strong bond between the two of us. The wedding day itself was filled with a hectic schedule. Right after the wedding ceremony, we quickly changed into and waited. During that time, there was no time to catch our breath with photo shoots and greeting relatives. But it was still heartwarming to be congratulated by so many people saying, "Congratulations, you look beautiful." Despite everything, I'm glad we made it to this day. While taking a short break in the family waiting room and chatting lightly with relatives, my mother-in-law suddenly spoke up.
May I have a moment, please?
My mother-in-law shouts. Everyone turns their gaze to my mother-in-law.
Isn't that Harrison's mother?
Aunt Sally softly nudges me on the ear. Yeah, I wonder what's going on. My mother-in-law clears her throat lightly and begins to speak.
Thank you all for attending today's gathering. I truly appreciate it.
My mother-in-law behaves as if she's the center of attention. With a sarcastic smile, she continues to speak, addressing me.
While I'm grateful for a day like today, there's one fortunate thing. Erin, my daughter-in-law, didn't come over to greet me properly to pay her respects, as is customary. This is common sense for someone joining the family, isn't it? Isn't it something important? Unfortunately, it seems Erin still lacks that kind of consideration. But please, rest assured. As for Erin, who only finished junior high, I'll make sure to discipline her properly, she says, lowering her head deeply.
Did she think applause would happen? When she raised her head, she still had a proud and smug expression. The waiting room fell silent in an instant. I sat there with my strength drained, not knowing what had happened.
Aaron, are you okay?
Harrison rushes over in a panic, but I can't seem to gather my thoughts. To think that on a day of celebration, a joyous occasion, someone could disrupt the atmosphere like this. Can that really be something a parent would do? As I stand there dumbfounded, the aunt beside me gently places her hand on my shoulder and softly breaks. I'm the bride's aunt. Quietly, she began to tell me about my upbringing. My niece lost her parents early and worked desperately, putting herself second for the sake of her brother. I truly cherished such a niece and still regard her as my own daughter. My aunt then glanced sharply at my mother-in-law. I will not allow my precious niece to marry into your family. This marriage never happened. My mother-in-law was left gaping in shock at my aunt's unexpected retaliation. Erin, you have a place to come back to. My aunt pleaded, tears streaming down her face. I too couldn't help but shed tears at her sight, as we embraced each other, quietly shedding tears.
Sis, I want you to be happy. Don't go to a house with such a mean mother-in-law.
My younger brother Tanner offered further support.
What are you saying? How rude.
My mother-in-law finally snapped out of her daze and started to argue back. But Tanner persisted.
Who's being rude here? Can't you distinguish between right and wrong?
He countered with a chillingly cold stare. My mother-in-law fell silent in the face of Tanner's fierce response. In the noisy waiting room, people were only talking bad about my mother-in-law.
Even if it's just bullying, that's unacceptable, isn't it? And on a day of celebration no less? What are you thinking?
Absolutely, it's beyond embarrassing. My mother-in-law's face turned pale, perhaps realizing the magnitude of her wrongdoing. And to top it off,
Mom, I'm cutting ties with you. What you did is the worst as a human being. I can't forgive you.
Harrison publicly disowned his mother in front of everyone. Truthfully, this decision had already been made in Harrison's heart. He had planned to smoothly get through the wedding and then inform his mother afterward.
What? Cutting ties? What do you mean?
My mother-in-law was wide-eyed and surprised.
It means exactly what it sounds like. I'm going to be listed as part of Erin's family.
What? Hold on, what are you saying, Harrison?
No matter how many times my mother-in-law called him, Harrison ignored her. The wedding that day went fairly smoothly, but my mother-in-law had a dark expression, almost like at a funeral. And finally, feeling unwell, she left her seat midway and didn't return. I felt truly relieved that my mother-in-law had left. People who didn't know the situation were surprised at the mother of the groom's departure, but the MC and Harrison managed to cover it up somehow so her absence wasn't noticeable. Actually, during the change of attire, I unexpectedly ran into my mother-in-law in the hallway. Mother-in-law, you often talked about what's important as a person, right? What do you think is really important? I'm glad I married Harrison. It helps me not to lose sight of what's important. How about you, mother-in-law? I muttered to myself, wondering if that had any effect. And then, Harrison was officially registered as my spouse. As for my brother Tanner,
Harrison having the same last name as me feels somehow reassuring.
He seemed happy, as if he gained a real brother. Meanwhile, at the wedding, my mother-in-law received criticism from all the relatives for her remarks. Even when we attended family gatherings, she was invited, completely isolated because they were afraid she might cause trouble again. Cut off even by her only son, she truly became lonely and isolated. She spends every day crying in loneliness and sorrow. When neighbors asked if something had happened to my mother-in-law, Harrison and I explained the situation. It's amazing how rumors spread so quickly, even in the neighborhood. There are whispers about our mother-in-law, even among the neighbors. I struggled to understand why she spoke so contemptuously of me in front of so many people. But perhaps, because of that, everyone learned about her maliciousness, which may have been for the best in the end. Since marrying, Harrison has always been kind to me, truly an ideal husband. Every day is filled with happiness, and I'm grateful for our marriage. Living with my brother Tanner, it truly was the best decision. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. See you in our next video.